Okay, so we're in the middle of verse 8 to 12. False ego means accepting this body as oneself. When one understands that he is not his body and is spirit soul, that is real ego. Ego is there. False ego is condemned, but not real ego. In the Veda literature, it is said, Aman Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am spirit. This I am, the sense of self, also exists in a liberating stage of self realization. This sense of I am is ego, but when the sense of I am is applied to the false body, it is false ego. When the sense of self is applied to reality, that is real ego. There is some philosophers who say we should give up our ego, but we cannot give up our ego because ego means identity. We ought, of course, to give up the false identification with the body. One should try to understand the distress of accepting birth, death, old age, and disease. There are descriptions in various Veda literatures of birth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the world of the unborn, the child's stay in the womb of the mother is suffering, etc., are all very graphically described. It should be thoroughly understood that birth is distressful because we forget how much distress we have suffered within the womb of the mother. We do not make any solution to the repetition of birth and death. Similarly, at the time of death, there are all kinds of sufferings, and they are also mentioned in the authoritative scriptures. These should be discussed. As far as disease and old age are concerned, everyone gets practical experience. No one wants to be diseased, and no one wants to become old, but there is no avoiding these. Unless we have a pessimistic view of this material life, considering the distresses of birth, death, old age, and disease, there is no impetus for our making advancement in spiritual life. As for detachment from children, wife, and home, it is not meant that one should have no feeling for these. There are natural objects of affection, but when they are not favorable to the spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. The best process for making the home pleasant is Krishna consciousness. If one is in full Krishna consciousness, he can make his home very happy because the process of Krishna consciousness is very easy. One need only chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Accept these remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Have some discussions on the books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and engage oneself in deity worship. These four will make one happy. One should train the members of his family in this way. The family members can sit down morning and evening and chant together Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If one can mold his family life in this way to develop Krishna consciousness, following these four principles, then there is no need to change from family life to renounced life. Oh, wow. I feel like we've been asking about this for a long time. But it is not congenial, not favorable for spiritual advancement, then family life should be abandoned. One must sacrifice everything to realize or serve Krishna, just as Arjuna did. Arjuna did not want to kill his family members, but when he understood that these family members were impedance to his Krishna realization, he accepted the instruction of Krishna and fought and killed him. In all cases, one should be detached from happiness and distress of a contaminant factors of material life. One should learn to tolerate, as advised in the Bhagavad Gita. One should never restrict the coming and going of happiness and distress. So one should be detached from materialistic way of life and be automatically equiposed in both cases. Generally, we get something desirable, we are very happy, and when we get something undesirable, we are distressed. But if we are actually in the spiritual position, these things will not agitate us. To reach that stage, we have to practice unbreakable devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna without deviation means engaging oneself in 9 processes of devotional service. Chanting, hearing, worshiping, offering, respect, etc., are described in the last verse of the 9th chapter. That process should be followed. Naturally, when one is adapted to the spiritual way of life, he will not want to mix with materialistic men. That would go against his grain. One may test himself by seeing how far he is inclined to live in a solitary place without unwanted association. Naturally, a devotee has no taste for unnecessary sporting or cinema going or enjoying social function, because he understands that these are simply a waste of time. There are many research scholars and philosophers who study sex life and some other subject, but according to the Bhagavad Gita, such research work and philosophical speculation have no value. That is more or less nonsensical according to the Bhagavad Gita. One should make research by philosophical discretion into the nature of the soul. One should make research to understand with what the self is concerned. That is recommended here. As far as self-realization is concerned, it is clearly stated here that the bhakti yoga is especially practical. As soon as there is a discussion of devotion, one must consider the relationship between the super soul and the individual soul. The individual soul and the super soul cannot be one, at least not in the bhakti conception, the devotional conception of life. This service of the individual soul to the super soul is eternal, nityam, as is clearly stated. So bhakti or devotional service is eternal. One should be established in the philosophical conviction, otherwise it is only a waste of time, ignorance. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is explained. Vadanti tava vishdas tapanya jamam avayam. Those who are actually knowers of the absolute truth know that the self is realized in 3 different phases: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the last word in the realization of the absolute truth. Therefore, one should reach up to the platform of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus engage in the devotional service of the Lord. That is perfection of knowledge. Beginning from practicing humility up to the point of realization of the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, this process is just like a staircase beginning from the ground floor to the top floor. Now, on this staircase, there are so many people who have reached the first floor, the second floor, the third floor, etc. But unless one reaches the top floor, which is understanding of Krishna, he is at the lower stage of knowledge. If anyone wants to compete with God and at the same time make advancement in spiritual knowledge, he will be frustrated. It is clearly stated, without humility, understanding is harmful. To think oneself God is puffed up. Although the living entity is always being kicked by stringent laws of material nature, still he thinks, I am God, because of ignorance. One should be humble and know that he is subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Due to the rebellion against the Supreme Lord, one becomes subordinate to material nature. One must know and be convinced of this truth. Text 13. Jamanyat pava ki sami ya yantaratam ashnote ami mat param braram na satan nashad yugati. I shall now explain the knowable knowing which will taste the eternal. This is beginningless, and it is subordinate to me. It is called Brahman, the spirit, and it lies beyond the cause and effect of the material world. The Lord has explained the field of activities and the knower of the fields. He has also explained the process of knowing the knower of the field activities. Now he has explained the knowable, both the soul and the supersoul, respectively. By knowledge of the knower, both the soul and the supersoul, one can relish the nectar of life. As explained in the second chapter, the living entity is eternal. This is also confirmed here. There is no specific date at which the jiva was born, nor can anyone trace the history of the Janma's manifestation from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is beginningless. The Veda literature confirms this. Na ja ate marjarate va vipustit. The knower of the body is never born and never dies, and he is full of knowledge. The Supreme Lord is also stated as the Vedic literature as the Pramahana Kashtranja Patir Junesa. The Supreme Lord as the Supersoul is the chief knower of the body, and he is the master of the three modes of material nature. In the Shmirti, it is said, Dasha Bhutto Harir Eva Nan Ya Savya Kadakana. The living entities are eternally in the service of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed by Lord Katiya in his teachings. Therefore, the description of Brahman mentioned in this verse is the realization to the individual soul. And when the word Brahman is applied to the living entity, it is to be understood that the Vichamanam Brahman, as opposed to the Anta Brahma, Anatta Brahma, is the supreme Brahma personality of Godhead. Text 14. Sarvata pani panam tat sarvatu ki suro mukam sarvata srutima loke sraram arvayita tishtati. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes and faces, and he hears everything. In this way, the supersoul exists. As the sun exists diffusing its unlimited rays, so does the supersoul. So the supreme personality of Godhead, he exists in his all-pervading form, and in him exist all individual living entities, beginning from the first teacher Brahma down to the small ants. There are unlimited heads, legs, hands, and eyes, and unlimited living entities. All are existing in and on the supersoul. Therefore, the supersoul is all pervading. The individual soul, however, cannot say that he has his hands, legs, eyes everywhere. It is not possible. If he thinks that although under ignorance he is not conscious that his hands and legs are all diffused all over, but he attains to proper knowledge, he will come to the stage he is thinking. His thinking is contradictory. This means that the individual soul, having become conditioned by the material nature, is not supreme. The supreme is different from the individual soul. The Supreme Lord can extend his hand without limit. The individual soul cannot. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said, that if anyone offers him a flower or fruit or a little water, he accepts. If the Lord is far distance away, how can he accept things? This is the omnipotence of the Lord, even though he is situated in his own abode far, far away from earth. He can extend his hand to accept with what anyone offers. That is his potency. In the Brahman Shman Hita, it is stated, Goloka Iva Nivasati, although he is always engaged in pastimes in his transcendental planet, he is all pervading. The individual soul cannot claim that he is all pervading. Therefore, this verse describes the supreme supersoul, the personality of Godhead, not the individual soul. Text 15. Shravandira gun ahasam sarvandira arjitam askartam sarva kava nirguna juna bhutaka. The supersoul is the original soul of all senses. He is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all modes of material nature. The Supreme Lord, although the source of all senses of living entities, doesn't have material senses like they have. Actually, the individual souls have spiritual senses, but in condemned life, they are covered with the material elements, and therefore the sense activities are exhibited through matter. The Supreme Lord's senses are not covered. His senses are transcendental and are therefore called nirjuna. Juna means the material modes, but his senses are without material covering. It should be understood that his senses are not exactly like ours. Although he is the source of all sensual activities, he is the transcendental senses which are uncontaminated. This is very nicely explained in the Shritarvartara Upisand in the verse Sarvata Pani Padam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no hands, which are material contaminated, but he has his hands and accepts whatever sacrifice is offered to him. That is the distinction between the conditioned soul and the supersoul. He has no material eyes, but has eyes, otherwise, how could he see? He sees everything past, present, and future. He sees within the heart of the living being, and he knows what we have done in the past and what we are doing now and what is awaiting in the future. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. He knows everything, but no one knows him. It is said that the Supreme Lord has no legs like us, but he can travel throughout space because he has spiritual legs. In other words, the Lord is not impersonal. He has eyes, legs, hands, and everything else. And because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we also have these things. But his hands, legs, eyes, and senses are not contaminated by material nature. Bhagavad Gita also confirms that when the Lord appears, he appears as he is by his internal potency. He is not contaminated by material energy because he is the Lord of material energy. In the Veda literature, we find that his whole embodiment is spiritual. He has his external form called the Sakid Amata Vijarhar. He is full of opulence. He is the proprietor of all wealth and the owner of all energy. He is the most intelligent and is full of knowledge. These are some of the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the maintainer of all spiritual entities and the witness of all activities. As far as we can understand from the Vedic literature, the Supreme Lord is always transcendental. Although we do not see his hands, head, face, or legs. he has them. And when we are elevated to the transcendental situation, we can see the Lord's form. Due to the materiality contaminated senses, we cannot see his form. Therefore, the impersonalists who are still material affected cannot understand the personality of Godhead. Good stopping point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you read a lot.
Yeah. So that's text 16.
Yep.
So I think Sue would be happy to hear that the family thing that we started out with. So that was one of her continuous questions.
Yeah, I'll have to send her an email.
Yeah.
Learning the Gita through the Bhakti Center yesterday, it's like he like just simplifies it so much in the sense of like we went back over the modes of nature and the senses, and I had missed the first conversation on it, but I felt like I could keep up with it because we've been reading and studying it. Just a reminder, like this book is just teaching us, it's like well, this was my interpretation of the class, but it's just like a roadmap, a compass of for our own life, just to remind ourselves, like, we're not perfect, we're not going to be perfect, but this having this equanimity, or not even having it, but practicing having equanimity, so that when we are in these stressful situations, and like understanding that we have those three gunas, the sattvic, tamasic, and rajasic, and that we have been conditioned through our senses on how to live our life. And I gave an example of just like what I've been going through this week. And I think it was all meant, everything was like meant to be. I truly believe that. And like Kramer lived all through COVID. I got my second shot. I'm fully vaccinated in 2 weeks. We take our final trip to vacation to the spot we found each other. And then he comes home and he says goodbye on Plank Day, no less. So it's just like, I get it. It's all meant to be. And like, if you would have, like, we always used to joke, like my friends had gone to Eric in the past and be like, what are we going to do with her when she goes? And I would be like, just lock me up for 3 months. Like, I'm going to be so depressed, blah, blah, blah. And so going through this, like, really, I don't even want to call it like traumatic, because losing someone that old isn't necessarily traumatic, but like this grieving period for me, I can still be sad and even borderline like depressed, not like bedridden depressed, but like there's a depression there. And I can still be happy and joyful and laugh, but I can do it in like a very light way. Like I was walking Kramer. Oh my God. I was walking myself yesterday.
Kramer was with you.
Kramer was with me. He actually didn't do this walk with me. This was something I started doing on my own. And I needed my exercise walk. I felt like I feel like this lightness. I don't feel the heaviness. And even I was telling like the group, like, you know, we live in New York. We're very close to New York City. I mean, you're right there, Domenica. And like, I work on Wall Street. I live on Long Island. And I escaped to North Carolina for a week on a beach town. And I can feel the energy difference. I can feel like it is, I can't, adjusting from beach vacation to coming back here, I'm like on edge all day long. Like, and like trying to grieve through this energy, it's challenging. But when you are aware of these gunas and you're aware of your senses, and I still love the tongue example yesterday, like I can get upset, and now I know, like I could like get uncontrollably sobbing, crying, and I just pick up my phone and I scroll through pictures of him, and it like I know my tools to calm me down. And I think that brings me back to balance. Like that brings me back to that like calmer state. I let myself go through it. I'm not like ignoring that part of it. But this, I feel like there's a book called, I forget what it's called, but it's this woman who is a neurological scientist or a doctor or something, and she experiences stroke. And so she's studying herself as she's experiencing stroke. And she wrote a book about it, and I loved it. But like, it's funny I'm like watching myself grieving, and I'm doing it in like an intentional, healthy way. I've never gone through something like this before. And it's so human-like. And it's just like, it's very, somebody in the class had said, you know, she's a nurse and she grieves, but with acceptance. And I thought that was just so beautiful. Like, it's part of life. We live, we die.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself that's what the Gita just tells us. That in itself is very traumatic, just birth and death.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing today. But yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. It's like you're allowing yourself to feel it and kind of process it, but not become over consumed in a way.
It's
You
like,
have
yeah,
to-
it's a very like light feeling. And it's like the book that I can't remember, a stroke, it's called like A Stroke of Insight. I think that's what she called it. She's the one that introduced me to this 90-second like emotional takeover. So like any sort of interaction you have out in the world, say you're arguing with somebody or something happens, it's going to take you 90 seconds for your nervous system to sort of process it. And instead of reacting, you can take the 90 seconds, let your body have its temper tantrum or whatever it wants to do silently. And then after those 90 seconds, you can then take a deep breath and choose how you want to act instead of react.
That's really interesting. I can just imagine though, like when I wait, just like 90 seconds is gonna feel like so long, right?
Yeah, no, it's like that's the really hard, that's the intentional part. Like that's the part we practice. Like when we show up to yoga and being mindful and being present and being aware and witnessing what's going on instead of just reacting. Like you show up to a yoga class and go through the whole class and your mind is over here and you're just reacting to what the teacher's telling you to do. You're not really practicing yoga. You're just like a Simon Says dummy.
Yeah.
Like I always joke with students when I'm the teacher in the room, and I say, you know, like, I'm just here to guide you. Like, we show up to our yoga mat and we can't wait to be told what to do. The second we step off the yoga mat, someone tells us to do something and we're immediately rebelling. So it's just so interesting to watch students like come to their mat and they're like, oh, you're like, you know, you could tell them to do anything and they listen to you.
Put your foot behind your head.
Yeah. And I'm like, but I'm like, I want you to listen to me. I'm here to guide you, but you don't have to do everything I say. And if it doesn't make you feel comfortable, acknowledge that and don't do it. Or do something else, like do something that really feels true to you. And when I watch everyone in the room doing their own thing, but they're all doing the same thing, but they look different, I think that is the powerful spread of yoga.
Yeah.
Because that's what people need. They need to pause and be like, wait, does this feel good right now? What else can I do for myself? Like, I know I can go to my phone and scroll at pictures of Kramer and watch his video. That's my tool right now. I know I go for a walk. I put on my yoga meditation. That's helpful to me. Like, I know. And I think that's why this grieving process has been like really healing for me, because Kramer set me up this way. Like, he was like, you're going to do your 7:30 morning meditation with me every day. You're going to sign up for the Gita course. You're going to sign up for the anti-racism course, because then you'll be busy because you like being busy. And if I was to give all that stuff up right now, it would be like dishonoring him and his legacy. Like, I can't do that. So yeah, I think sometimes, like I was thinking, like sometimes we read something, we're like, we have no idea what this Gita is talking about. But if we just keep reminding ourselves, it's just like examples on practicing equanimity and moving through the three modes of nature with our senses. And just for me, it's just like constantly learning and unlearning and questioning. and having conversations, like fun conversations with people, or not fun, not, it doesn't have to be fun, but just like,
Insightful.
yeah, or like truth conversations with people. Like, why do you feel that way? Because like, I can't even imagine having this, like when she's talking about having this family. I mean, Eric pretty much, I think I told you guys this. He's like, you could probably make me do anything right now because he doesn't want to see me suffering. But if I was to be like, oh, let's chant Hare Krishna this morning, he would like be like, or he would do it, but it wouldn't be like true to him. But like, they make it sound so easy, but it
I
would be
know.
I thought you were gonna say, Eric, let's have a baby, and he would do it.
oh, I'm sure he would. I'm sure he would. But the thing with Eric is, Eric is not the partner to have a baby with for me, because I would be doing 100% of the work. I'd have to quit my job. I mean, I could totally do that. We could totally do that, but it's just not my path to do that. Like, maybe I would foster children in the future, but eventually maybe adopt. I don't know, like when I'm older, but in
It's
the
interesting to hear you say that
what?
you would like, because I always thought that you were like you didn't want to ever.
No, I like don't want to have like I don't want to have my own kids. I just don't. But I could see, I don't know, it's just something I've entertained. I could see like in the future, like as a retiree doing it almost like.
That's so sweet, Pam.
Well, you know, I volunteer often with the foster children, and like
Yeah.
they really need foster parents like 0 through 5. And I could totally set, like, I think being a foster parent is the hardest job in the world because, and this is what Rachel Hollis, that Girl Wash Your Face blogger, says, because she was a foster mom. She says you have to love a child like its own and be able to and wish for it to reconnect with its family.
Mm.
That's why I always do the Mother's Day presents now for the foster moms, because I think they need to be recognized in our community for what they're doing.
That sounds like the ultimate unconditional sacrifice.
Yeah, very selfless.
Yeah, like opening up your home to a stranger and the family and the baggage, because there's always baggage with foster.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how difficult that would be.
Yeah. And like you get repeat, a lot of them are repeat kids, you know, it comes back into your house again. I call all kids it. Yeah, so
you made an interesting point before about grieving, about how, or presence, you're saying that like it sounded like a lot of people view presence, and I know I experienced this in my path towards like the goal of being connected inwardly. Like we start off with this idea that presence is like focusing on your external environment, but you made a good point that it's like the ability to grieve with acceptance is really a kind of presence that's focused on the internal environment, right? And that's like a very elevated and hard thing to do, I think. I don't even think people realize that that's the shift that's required. Like we start by being present by like looking at the food we're cooking and paying attention when we drive our car and like feeling the breath when we're sitting there, but like being able to look at your feelings as they arise and have that full acceptance is definitely that's like this next level.
yeah, and you just made me remember something. Like, I can't remember where or how I read this. I don't remember if it was in notes yesterday, but it was something along the lines of like, and this is something I've always struggled with my sister's death. Like, my sister's death was not technically like my experience. Like, her suffering was her experience, and like I have no control. It was something about control around grief, like, and it gave me a little bit more peace yesterday. Like Kramer dying wasn't necessarily a reflection of my mothering him. Like, he died because it was his time and nature took him. And it was the same thing like when Sharon was a different experience for me because it was very traumatic. But like my role of her sister didn't influence her dying. Like, it was just her time. And I think that's what happens a lot with grief, is like we immediately make it about us instead of about the person. Or maybe I should just say I shouldn't speak for the collective, but I know that's something like I do. And instead of and so now when I grieve, I don't try to focus on the loss. I try to focus on how lucky I am that Kramer chose me to be his mommy for 17 and a half years, and how lucky I am that Sharon chose me to be her sister. And I try to focus on what we had and not what we didn't have. Otherwise, it just becomes a lifelong suffering of what could have been instead of just appreciating what was.
Yeah, that acceptance for sure.
Yeah, it's an acceptance.
Yeah, and people grieving the role, like the persona that they took on in the relationship. That's also a big part of it.
Yeah. And like for me, like that role disappeared. Like I get up in the morning, I change his water. My whole day was revolved around Kramer. And when that was taken away, it's hard, but I have to accept it. And I have to take what I'm learning through the Gita and all my studies and what Kramer taught me. And I have to not sulk around the house. I still do this because I'm like, I just want to change his water. It's still very new. It's still very raw. But when you are someone's caretaker, a human or a fur creature, that's what I called Kramer, fur creature. And that's taken away, you become like, your whole purpose is like questioned, but then you just have to like reconnect. I don't know. It's like it's all like, it just becomes like an illusion, and you have to come and be like, no. And it's so funny how things work out. Like, I really wanted to listen to this Alicia Keys Deepak meditation. I know it's already 8:12. We have to breathe. But when I was in North Carolina, and I did it. And I think it was meant to be, because I'm listening to it now and I'm having a whole nother experience listening to it, because they're talking a lot about divine feminine energy and mothering and nurturing. And I realized that those things are already in me. I just got to use those tools on Kramer. And I will get to use them in the future on whatever other creature comes into my life, whether it's another dog or a human being. Like, if I do ever decide to, I know I have that like nurturing.
You do. In
me. And now I can just use it elsewhere in my life. I just have to redirect. It's like a redirect, I guess.
Right.
It's that I'm taking that like long 90 seconds right now and like taking a deep breath and being like, instead of reacting to this catalyst moment in my life, I need to learn how to act. I need to figure out how I'm going to act. And it's just going to take me time to figure out. And that's all. Yeah.
That's a healthy way of looking at it.
Yeah, I can't even believe where I am and that I'm even like doing this.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, right?
Yeah, like I can't even believe it's been a whole week yesterday. I think like tomorrow's Sharon's anniversary, and I feel calm about it. I feel like they're together again. I have this one picture. I'll post it. Whoops. I'll post it tomorrow of my sister and Kramer together.
Oh my gosh, look at his coloring.
I know, he's totally different. Kramer was probably he was about a year old in this picture.
Oh my God, that is so cute. Because like he was almost like gray.
Oh, he was all white. He was basically, he's so different.
He was a gray old man.
Yeah, he's an old man. That's why, like, when I look at his pictures, it's calming for me. And I don't even have that many. I have only pictures on my phone. I have lifetime pictures I want to build. But yeah, this was, my sister and Kramer only met maybe, I can't even say 5 times, maybe 2 or 3 times, because I was at school. And that was that was one of the weekends we spent together, and now they're together again. I always picture that. I'm like, I know they're going to be together again one day. So I think after tomorrow,
He was so handsome.
people used, I have the lawnmowers going, but people across the street, people used to stop me even at the gas station, offer me money for my dog. Like, it was insane. Everybody wanted Kramer. He was the most popular, handsome, spoiled, well-behaved dog.
He's so sweet.
Yeah, and he'd pop up at the, like, be getting gas, and he'd pop up at the window, and his little ear, his big little ears. All right, so let's do some meditation or breath work. Let me go. I'll go back in I'll go on the floor. I think I'll go in my room. Trying to mask the smell of the poison with a candle and Febreze, but it's like anything else. It's just an illusion. The poison smell is still there.
No, don't sit in the poison, Pam.
I'm just gonna sit here. Okay, I have to sit
No,
in here.
don't sit in poison.
I
Air
have
that room out. Oh my gosh, that stuff is so
Open the
toxic.
windows.
I have opened the windows. It's been like 12 hours the windows have been open.
Close that door, girl. Don't let that in your house.
I have to sit in there all day and work today.
No. Sit in the wherever you are. Sit in the kitchen.
I don't have my computer in here. I know. I should have done it before I went to North Carolina.
Oh my God, I have the same front door.
Oh, that's so funny. This is my
Crazy.
back door.
Oh, okay. I have the same door, but in my front.
Oh, all right, so we'll sit up nice and tall, take a few rounds of alternate nostril breathing, and then we'll move into our breath. Bring your right hand over to your nose, close the right nostril with the thumb, inhale through the left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. 2 more rounds on your own breath. When you're done, you'll exhale out the left side and begin your meditation.
Did the timer go off?
A minute, but my other meditation ended, so we can just end.
Okay. I had to stand up. I was feeling so stiff.